Hi folks, this is an ERA 6-pin Euro cylinder. There's a lot of these in my local area and I've had to open a lot of these over the years. This cylinder can often be bullied into a full set using a city rake, or even, as you can see in this case, it can be opened. And that didn't take very long. There are spool pins inside here, but what I've discovered recently is people are starting to use the ERA lock with the 1-star rating on, and what I wanted to do is see whether this particular lock can be bullied open in the same way as the previous lock. So let's just get a tension wrench. That fits in there quite snugly. Let's get the city rake, see whether we can encourage this to drop into a full set. So same technique, bullied, there we go. That's dropped now into a full set almost immediately. So let's get a hook out and have a little explore, see what we've got. Nothing on 1, 2, 3. Okay, I've just touched 4 and I've got a deeper full set. 5 and 6. Nothing on 6. Go to 5. Looking for counter rotation now. 5, 4. Nothing on 4, 3, 2 and 1. Okay, let's go back to the pin 6. See, check that set. I can feel the spring there at the back of the lock, so I know that I'm on pin 6. 6, 5. So we're looking for quite a bit of counter rotation here because we're in a deep full set. What I'm going to do is, once I've picked this, I'm going to take both these locks apart. I'm going to just see if we can work out what the difference is between them. So there you go, that's pin 6. Pin 5 is quite high and I'm getting a lot of counter rotation on pin 5. So let's just, there we go, that sounds like pin 5 is set. Pin 4. Pin 3. Pin 3 is just giving me the full set back again. Pin 2 and pin 1. Okay, let's go back to the back of the lock. 6. Pin 5. Counter rotation. There's a click. Not sure if that pin's set, but it sounded like it went down. 6, 5, 4, 3. 3 has given me my full set back again. 2, so it's like, looks like pin 6. Pin 5 is a deep spool, needs to be set. Ah, there we go. Okay, so that's opened the standard ERA, and that's opened the ERA 1-star. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gut both of these and see what's inside them side by side. Well, not so fast. While I was going through my lockbox, I found this ERA 3-star cylinder, and I thought, well, let's do a true comparison here, and we'll actually show all of the locks side by side. So the standard cylinder, the 1-star, and here we've got the 3-star cylinder. And the first method of attack on this was for me to go through and try all of the different key pins, finding the binding pins, and gently pushing them down to set them. I hasten to add, I don't have the keys for any of these locks, so I was unfamiliar with the bitting. On this particular 3-star, what was causing me the biggest problem was pin 6 was dead, basically. It wouldn't give me any feedback whatsoever. And it felt like a 0 lift pin. And then pin 5 was giving me plenty of feedback and counter rotation, but pin 4 was quite high in front of it, almost like a guard pin. So every time I tried to set pin 5, pin 4 would overset and obviously stop the lock from opening. So here I'm going backwards and forwards through this lock, looking for the pin that's going to give me a full set. Obviously the city rake was doing that on the previous locks, but on this one the city rake was totally ineffective. So I'm just trying now to find which lock is going to give me the full set, which pin, and I believe in a minute it's going to give me that full set, and then there it is. So that set of pin is dropped into a full set, and now I'm going back to see what else there is. Pin 6 was dead. Pin 5 was given a little bit of counter rotation, but I believe that pin 5 was set. So then I started to move back through the lock here, pin 3, pin 2, and I believe that it was pin 2 that actually gave me the open, which is going to happen right now. There we go. So yeah, so now I've picked those 3, I'm now going to gut all 3 locks and have a little look at the pins that are inside. Right, I have picked all 3 locks and gutted them, and the results are here on the left. At the top we've got the standard ERA Euro cylinder 6 pin, and there isn't anything special about the drillings inside the lock body itself, and the core, there isn't any funny business going on there either. As you can see, there's no anti-drill measures on the core, and there's no anti-drill measures on the cylinder itself. Having said that, and this one did open fairly quickly with the city rake, but when you look at the pins, they're all standard key pins, and there are 2 standard driver pins, but the rest are spool. So there are 4 spool pins inside this lock, and sometimes when you're picking them on the door, depending on the configuration of the bitting, they can be a little problematic to open. They do bump quite well. I carry bump keys for these, and invariably that gets the open if the pick gun doesn't do it. If the pick gun puts it into a full set, then these spools are really quite easy to pick out of. So there's no surprises really with the standard cylinder. It is what it is. Nothing disrespectful about it. It's still a half decent cylinder, to be fair. Then we've got this new 1-star. I say new, it's new to me. 1-star ERA 6-pin Euro cylinder, and again, if we look inside the cylinder itself, the body, there isn't anything special going on with the drillings. I can't see any measures there. And then on the actual core itself, again, these are all plain drillings, but now we start to see a little bit more attention to the anti-drilling aspect of it, and this metal insert here slots into the front of the core, and basically gives a first line of defense when it comes to drilling that particular cylinder. Also, you'll notice there's a couple of guard pins here at the front of the cylinder body itself, lock body itself, and they're anti-drill pins. And what you'll also notice is there are a couple of cut lines on here, and that is the sacrificial section of the core that will preferably snap first if the cylinder is attacked using a snapping method. Now, what's quite interesting is looking at the body itself. The sacrificial cuts are not in the body, so this negates these altogether. There's no point in having them if you don't have the sacrificial cuts here. But the clever thing here is, if you notice these two dimples, there's one there and there's one there. When these are fitted to a door, they're typically fitted with a security 3-star, 2-star handle set, which basically this cylinder combined with that handle set, which prevents the snapping attack anyway, gives you that much higher level of protection. Along the top, we've got all standard driver pins. You can see the bitting judging by the length of these, and so pin 4 and 5. Pin 4 looks to me like it's almost, but not quite, a zero lift, followed by this deeper set pin behind, and they are obviously configured to make it difficult to get a pick over the top of that without oversetting this when you're setting that pin there. What's really interesting in this lock, so at the front of the lock we have this steel anti-drill pin, key pin, and we've got this steel anti-drill spool pin in chamber 1. And then if you look in chamber 2 and chamber 6, you would be forgiven to think that this was master suited, because we have these split driver pins in those two positions. And I thought, well, that's really strange. It doesn't look like a master suited lock. Why have we got those in there? And I spoke to several people, Gav being one of them, and Gav has taken one of these locks apart and found exactly the same thing in exactly the same position. So we can't really work out why there would be these double plane driver pins in these cylinders. There can't be an anti-pick or an anti-bump measure, because it gives you 2 separate shear lines in each of those. So that's kind of strange, but that's how they were, and it appears to be that's how they're configured. In pin chamber 3 and pin chamber 5, we've got these spools, which are pretty much the same spools that are used in the standard lock. But what's really interesting on this is this pin number 4, which is this, looks almost like a nail, and that is actually sleeved inside this spring, inside that pin chamber, and so it sits like that, which is really bizarre. And if we take the actual core itself, and if we put the key pin 4 in position, you'll notice that doesn't go all the way down. There's a little gap on the top there. And then when I put this really weird funky pin on top, what you'll notice is the spring, this giant spring here, is actually below the shear line, which means that when you're applying your tension rotation force to this core, that spring is getting bound on the shear line, which is, when I was picking it, I thought almost it was a multi-stage, multi-step spool pin or something weird, because it kept giving me clicks. I didn't think it was going to be a serrated, but it certainly picks something similar to one. And you can see that sitting in there, yeah, gave it a little bit of a extra difficulty in setting that particular pin. But yeah, it's kind of strange that the pin is stuck in the shear line there, and it could potentially get damaged while it's being picked by hand. Yeah, so that was a surprise. I am assuming, because that's quite a long pin and it's got a completely different spring on it. Let's just take those apart again. I'm assuming that this is an anti-bump measure, because that's obviously going to bump in a completely different way to the to a standard driver pin, and it's going to react in a totally different way too. So that's quite an interesting series of pins. Some of them unexplained. I cannot think for the life of me why they've doubled up on these driver pins here. But hey, maybe somebody else will know and leave a comment and or a guess as to why they're there, and also maybe a guess as to how this this blunt nail works in pin chamber 4. And then finally, we've got the 3-star lock. Again, the cylinder doesn't have anything special going on here. They're all plain drillings. And also the same in the core. These are all plain. There's no lips. There's no steps. But what you will notice is the 3-star compared to the 1-star has a much narrower pin spacing, so that makes it just a little bit more tricky to pick. And also this has 2 anti-drill pins right at the very front of the core, and there they are. I've taken them out. And if you look at the cylinder body itself, you can see anti-drill pins to there at the front of the cylinder. There's also another one just behind this sacrificial cut here. So there's 3 in total in the cylinder itself. What you will notice now is there is a sacrificial cut on this actual lock body, and when the core is in there, you can see that actually when that's snapped out, the whole core will move away and will just leave this portion of the cylinder in the door. And this lock has an active cam, which means that when this part is snapped out, an element moves forward and it puts the cam into a lockdown mode. So it fires a pin into the lock body somewhere, and that has actually happened. So this is solid from the front. It can't be turned. But with the thumb turn, if you pull the thumb turn out, you can see you can still rotate that core, and that's obviously so that whoever is stuck in the house, they can still lock and unlock the door, even if the front of the lock has been snapped off. Down here is the remains of the firing pins and gubbins that I've taken out of the cylinder when it went into its lockdown mode, so to speak. So in the actual core itself, all of the key pins are standard key pins. Literally, there isn't even a steel anti-drill pin on the key pins. But then if we look at the driver pins, we've got quite an interesting collection. The first driver pin is actually a steel driver pin, and it's a double spool, so that's quite a nice pin in there. In chamber 3 and 4 are quite tall, skinny spools, which clearly were getting caught in the shear line and making the lock a little tricky to open. We've got a standard plain driver pin there in position 6, and then in 2 and 5 we've got these what look like pin in pin. So it is literally a small pin inside a bigger pin, and that's the same on, as say, on 2 and 5. But if you look, you can see that the spring, the driver spring there, is just a single spring. And normally if you have a true pin in pin, you would have a spring within the spring, so that it will these two elements will operate independently of each other. That's not how this works at all. And I'm believing that these are, again, another anti-bump feature, so that the central pin will get knocked down at a different rate to the outside pin, and that'll obviously cause a problem when it comes to getting the lock open with a bump key. So out of picking, yeah, they pretty much follow the order, as you can see. So the first one was just a pretty easy city rake, and getting it into a full set, and then picking out the full set with a hook. The second lock was actually pretty much the same, although it did offer a little bit more resistance because of all these extra pins that we've got in there, the spools. Although these double driver pins, yeah, they make a bit of a mockery of that, because you've got two separate shear lines there presented. Incidentally, the key pin and one of these driver pins in position 6 turned into a zero lift. There was literally flush with the shear line. And then you've got the 3-star with its wonderful array of anti-drill and anti-pick measures. You've also got the ability to go down into lockdown if the front of the cylinder is snapped out. And I'm not going to be able to rescue this. There's no way of actually getting into this to release that firing pin. Not that I found anyway. I have had a good go and I had a good look at it, but I can't work out how to do it. So I've bricked the cylinder, but I didn't have a key for it. So there you are. All right, well, there's the 3 locks in comparison, and I've waffled on and on and on now for a long time, so apologies. But yeah, interesting to see the various stages of anti-pick, anti-drill, anti-bump measures that they've actually put inside these cylinders to make them harder for us to open. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed that, and if you've managed to stick through the waffle to this point, thank you very much for your continued support, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers and bye for now.